involved what appeared to be a family violence situation. The officers responded to the Super 8 motel, and that's at 4397 Sales Boulevard. They determined the room, which was up on the 3rd floor. They went to that room and knocked on the door, announcing themselves, and they immediately heard a female screaming for help and a male yelling. At that point, they reached the door. It took several tries to be able to get through that door, but they saw a female who was lying on the floor with obvious signs of trauma. They saw a considerable amount of blood to her upper body area. The male had stepped back and away, and in the hotel room, he was just on the other side of the bed when the officers engaged him by giving him some verbal commands. He was clearly armed with a scritch device. That's a wrench screwdriver type device. He did not comply with orders, and in fact, tried to jump over the bed at the officers. One officer discharged a taser, and that ended up being ineffective. Almost simultaneous to the taser being deployed, another officer had fired a service weapon. He fired at least 3 times. The male fell to the ground, and once he was secured, life-saving measures were attempted. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries right there at the scene. The female was taken to the hospital where she had multiple lacerations and stab wounds. She is in stable condition. I will tell you that this is a tragic situation. It's a family violence call, which our officers always know can be a very difficult situation to encounter. In this particular case, we had multiple incidents just this year involving the person who was shot and killed and this victim. And in those other incidents, we were fortunate in being able to take the suspect into custody without anyone being injured. And that was not the case. And obviously, it's not only difficult for the family who lost a loved one today, but also all the officers who had to be involved with that particular incident. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to all parties involved. Any questions about the incident?
Any idea what they were doing at the hotel?
They actually had a room at the hotel, and we contacted them on a previous occasion at that particular hotel.
Was this their residence for the time being, or you know?
I know that we in history have shown another address. I think we at some point listed the folks as transient. So I don't know the actual circumstances of how long they had been at the hotel, but they did have a room on this particular night.
So one question would be, if this has happened multiple times, why did we get to this point?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
How did we get to this point if it's happened multiple times? People would ask, why hasn't this been resolved previously?
Well, you know, I don't know that that's a question that I can necessarily answer because it involves dynamics where there's an intimate relationship between two people. You know, the system has only so much latitude to be able to do intervention to try to prevent folks from having contact with each other. In fact, in this particular circumstance, one of the prior contacts is where the deceased had been arrested on violating bond conditions, where there was a protection order in place that would have prevented him from having contact with the victim, but they were back together.
And they're not married or anything?
As far as I know, they are boyfriend, girlfriend.
And last time for an officer shooting? Rick, would you?
I can get that for you. I don't know offhand.
My folks just handed me a piece of paper that also reminded me that even in the 911 call, the suspect can be heard and he's not going back to jail again. So that was something that was documented during the 911 call.
Was it the female in the room that called 911?
That is what I presumed happened, but it is an investigation that's in the preliminary stages. I should also add that in officer-involved shootings, we're not the lead agency. We are doing a concurrent investigation with the Texas Rangers, and so they are actually the lead investigator on the case.
Do we have an ID for the deceased?
Yes, we do know who he is, but pending notification next to kin, we're not going to release that name. But once we have gotten next to kin notification completed, we will put the name.
Was the APD team who responds to mental health issues, were they notified of this or were they on the scene at all?
They were not. At this particular time, it was patrol officers that were on duty.
Was there any, could you tell if there was any alcohol or drugs involved?
That's going to be pending a autopsy.
Two officers or additional?
There were 3 officers that had entered the room.
Do you know if there were any other weapons present other than the syringe tool?
I don't have any other information of any other weapons.
When you say they entered the room, did they get a key from the hotel or did they actually have to force entry?
They actually had to force entry. The cries and screams were getting louder and louder as they were there at the door, and they had to make a decision to kick the door repeatedly to try to get in.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.